again live, and I'm totally excited about this one, you guys. We're going to learn some really interesting tidbits. But first of all, I want to welcome everybody. Please tell us where you're from, city and state, in the chat group right here. Welcome again to another awesome webinar here in LCA. Where else, right, Gus? Other than LCA Live. So please do tell us what city and state you're from. I would love to know. And I do also want to I want to tell you guys a little bit about our speaker today. But please tell us. So we've got Laura from Orlando. We've got Colorado Springs. Who else do we have, you guys? I know we have so many of you guys here. So please tell us city and state. I would love to know. In the meantime, let me introduce you guys to Gus. Gus, who are you? So Gus is our owner and the CEO of PowerISA, and he is going to be talking to us about the next steps of, once you're reached a certain part in your business, certain level in your business, what happens next, right? And, how do you get the right people in place? And he's going to talk to us a little bit about ISA. So welcome, Gus. Thank you so much for being here today with me. And I know we were supposed to do this last week, but thank you for being here this week. I appreciate you. Talk to us. Tell us a little bit about what is an ISA, when is the right time to hire an ISA, and the 3 things that we need to know when we hire an ISA.
Yeah, thanks so much, Janky. Glad to be here. I'm ready to go. It's a topic that I get asked about a lot. I have a very large ISA team myself. We have 120 full-time people on my team. It's pretty massive, pretty big. So the hiring, I want to say the sourcing, the hiring, the training process is something that, I have a lot of experience with, not just doing it myself, but building a team around doing it and leveraging my team to implement it. And once you delegate something, and if you delegate it effectively, you really become an expert in it, right? Because you have to explain it to somebody else. You have to set a standard for somebody else. You have to hold another team accountable for what you want. So you really get into the details to make sure that people understand what you're looking for and what they're supposed to do. So I've talked a lot about this. I've done it a ton. I'm really, really passionate about the whole hiring and training process. And you're going to see it, right, in this webinar. There's a lot of things that I've done in my company that are tried and true for me. People might agree with it. People might not. I'm here to share, my experience and what's worked for us. Currently, let me start with your question. Inside sales agent, ISA. Hopefully everyone is familiar with that term, but if you're not, inside sales agent for real estate is typically a telemarketing role, a phone calling role for real estate, whether you're focused on outbound prospecting, cold calling people you've never met, never heard of before, that haven't heard of you, or even calling inbound leads to qualify, to nurture, to follow up, set appointments with them. So ISAs can do both of those roles. They typically do a combination of those roles, right? Teams have ISAs recruiting real estate agents for them. Teams have ISAs, finding new deals for them, finding all kinds of stuff that ISAs can do. But on the basic level, I look to organize it into outbound, cold calling, prospecting, and inbound qualification, follow-up, nurturing, and conversion. So it's usually one of those 2 roles or a combination of those 2 roles, right? So that's what people have. When should you hire an ISA? It's such a great question, right? You should hire, it shouldn't be your first hire. I always tell people that. I run an ISA company. I would love everyone to have an ISA, but the reality is it shouldn't be your first hire. Number 1 hire you should have as a real estate agent, you should follow a model. You should have that administrative help first, whether that's a full-time or part-time admin assistant, or at least a per transaction coordinator, right, to really free you up from a lot of those tasks. Make sure they get done on time, make sure they get done consistently, and it frees you up to do consistent lead generation. That's really the key, right? That's 100%. And the teams, this is pretty consistent that I've seen across the board. When a team adds an ISA, the ISA should take tasks away from you, right? They should be, you're doing these lead generation activities. You know what they're like. You know what success looks like. When the ISA comes in, they should take away some of those activities so that you focus on the higher level activities. What I see, people are going to struggle when they bring an ISA and they want to teach them something that they've never done before. that is a really difficult situation to be in. Hey, ISA, come in here in my company. I want you to do circle prospect. And the team has never done circle prospecting. The agent's never done circle prospecting. So it's a little bit of the blind leading the blind. That's a difficult situation for an ISA to be successful in. The ideal situation is you're doing these lead generation activities and the ISA comes in to take them out of your hands, to do them better than you, do them more hours than you, and help you grow your business. That's really, so ISA should maybe be the soonest, maybe should be your second hire, probably your third or fourth after you have buyer's agents working for you, right? So that's the sweet spot. You know, I've seen everything in between that, right? People bring in ISAs once they have a mega team. I've seen new agents bring in ISAs. You know, I've seen everything in between. I think the sweet spot, your highest likelihood of success is when you're bringing them in to take away some of those lead generation activities and help you leverage your lead generation, right? And scale your business up, lead with revenue. And the best way to make that happen is if you have a really clear idea of what a good job is for lead generation. So that's the need, that's the role. Now we're talking about, okay, great. I want someone to help me with my lead generation. I'm either making the calls myself, my team is making those calls. The ISA is going to complement us, right? The ISA is going to complement our activities. That's great. How do you get one, right? Great. How do you get started? What's the best way to do it? And this is where this model of the 3 steps comes in. I love steps. If you've seen my webinars here at LCA, I love 3 steps for this, 3 steps for that. I think the 3 steps model forces me as a presenter, as an area expert, to really focus and simplify this stuff for you guys. There's a bunch of details. A lot of times those details aren't important. They're not key, right? From this webinar, if you can take away those 3 basic ideas and implement them, you're going to be successful. Yes, you can add a ton of detail into it. You can. But if you do these 3 things and you internalize these 3 steps, you're going to do well and you're going to get it, right? You can get a good ISA in your team. So step number 1. Oh, yeah, you want to throw something in there?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that I love the idea of the 3 steps because it gives you focus and it gives you system and clarity. Okay, one after the other. What do I do if my team is a mega team? And now I want to build out an ISA team, or I want to build out this team or this team, whatever team that you want in your mega team, you want to build out different teams for your system. This is one of the teams that you need to stay focused in on building out. And I'll tell you why, because it will give you that freedom of just making sure that the phone appointments are set. And I'm going a little bit too deep into it, but I definitely want Gus to talk to us about the 3 steps. But the role, what is their role? When do we hire them? And what is expected of them, right? So that is something also what I would love for you to cover, Gus. And I know, Andrea, you have a few questions. I will address those right at the very end. But go for it, Gus.
Yeah, so Yankee, I love that you mentioned that, right? You know, what's their role? What's going to be a standard they're held accountable to? I consider those things so important that is even before these 3 steps. That is pre-3 steps for me, right? You have to know what they're going to do. And that's why it's so important to have a lead generation model they're going to plug into. It's going to be challenging to be successful if the ISA is going to do something that isn't already done in your team. You're making it that much harder. You're just making it that much harder to get an ISA. You learn a new lead generation method and then hand it off to the ISA. It can be done. It's definitely harder. And you should have some kind of a standard you want to hold them to. If they're augmenting and complementing your lead generation, you know the standard, right? Is the standard 1 appointment a day? Is it 1 nurture a day, like in a cold calling scenario? Cold calling scenario, you're going to get maybe 1 qualified lead per day. That's very different than when you're calling Facebook leads, Google leads, or Zillow leads. Some of those portal leads are the highest converting leads you're going to get, right? That should be 1 out of every 3 leads is a solid confirmed appointment, right? Versus circle prospecting, where you need to probably talk to at least 100 people to get 1 or 2 potential qualified leads, not appointments, qualified leads in the cold calling scenario. So I would call that's pre-work, that's preamble. You need to figure those things out because the hiring is all about the who, right? The hiring process shouldn't be about what is this person going to do for me. That you should have that figured out beforehand, either by talking to someone that is an expert in the area, someone that already has an ISA, posting on LCA. LCA has it's a great resource to find and get opinions on job descriptions, job responsibilities. I would love to comment. People have questions about that. I love to comment with an LCA. Does your job description look okay? Is it complete? Is it not complete? I'm passionate about that. But I would call that step zero. Let me call it step 1, 2, 3. Step 0 is, what is your ISA going to do? How do they fit into your organization? And what standard are you going to hold them accountable to? I think that's step 0. Let's call it that. I think that's so important. You have to have that figured out beforehand, because otherwise figuring it out, and again, I'm an agent too, guys. I've had a new hire in and we're writing the job description with them in the room. I mean, it's happened to me too. I get it. But just understand that's a really, really important piece. ISA is different than buyer agent. I think we did internalize that too.
Yes.
ISA is a salaried position, folks, right? So it's a little bit different, the urgency and the need to have things figured out beforehand. It's like your admin. Your admin comes in and you're going to have that cost whether you're selling a bunch of homes or not, right? So ISA is the same way. You should be cautious when adding ISA to your team because it is an additional fixed cost. And the ROI, you want to get positive ROI for them, it's going to be at least 3 to 6 months to see positive ROI. 3 months if they're calling really, really high converting leads. It'll be 6 months if they're calling outbound prospecting, if they're building a cold pipeline for you, like from scratch. It can be up to 6 months to see positive ROI. So you need to go into it with those expectations set. Otherwise, trial by fire, right? You're going to find out. As we go, figure it out. And you might lose a lot of good candidates. You might have a lot of churn that might be unnecessary if that isn't clear from the get-go. So I would call that step 0, right? But once that's set, once you figure that out, you know what the role of your team is going to be, either a cold calling role or an inbound lead nurturing role, lead conversion role, or calling your database, right? Some teams have databases that are so large that a good chunk of what the ISA does every single day is plow through that database. And we're talking about the big teams now. There's teams that have 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 leads in their database. And most of them, yes, there's past clients in Sphere. Most of those are older internet leads that have become inactive. Your ISA should help you tackle those, right? So there's a lot of things that they can do, but that's a lot of pre-work to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about how to go about hiring. And everyone that is here right now, I want to let you know PowerISA is offering a special deal exclusively for LCA members, guys. And this is really awesome. Give them a try because I think you will get to know how the process is. Gus really takes time out to find the right ISA. And I am speaking from experience because one of our members from our ISA team is part of PowerISA. And, $100 off per month for our dedicated ISA plan, $1 off for cost per lead for both calling intensive and starter plan. I love the fact, and of course, the main thing here is $500 off of a new Build Your ISA training program. Now, let me tell you something. The link is right here, powerisa.com/LCA. Let me give you guys a little bit of update on that is that we use PowerISA and our ISA is just awesome. He is actually awesome, Gus. I'm not just saying that because you're here, but he is really good. And it took some time. It took some time to find the right one, but I'm so glad we got the right one right now. And it's growing pains. Remember, anyone that joins your team in the beginning, it is going to be growing pains because they're learning your systems. We have a director of ops that's helping him learn the systems and learn our databases. And we have a database of 6,000 plus. So it's not easy for an ISA to just jump in there and start dialing. They need to know their ways. So it does take 2 to tango in this scenario. Gus can provide you the ISA, but he will do, and his team of, the growth, the management team that is dedicated to you, they really go out and find the right team of ISA, and then they scrutinize that, right? They kind of dig a little deeper to find out which one is a perfect match. So talk to us a little bit about that, Gus.
Yeah,
what is involved in that?
Yeah, well, it's great to hear, Yankee. I love that. And the person is key, right? The person is so key. So we're getting into the hiring and selection process. And this is a part, this is what everyone's here for. Let's dive right into it. Step number 1, folks. Step number 1, and the one that I believe people make the most mistakes in. This is probably the one people get wrong the most that I've seen in my experience. Number 1, You need to get enough candidates. You need to get enough candidates. Why is that important? Because I've seen so many team owners, individual agents go, great, I interviewed 3 people and I picked the best one. I'm like, okay, so only 3 people applied for your job? Yes, and I interviewed all 3 and I picked the best. That doesn't sound like a very thorough process to me, right? So only 3 total applicants, to me, does not seem to be enough. We want, for any position that we want to fill, we want to interview 5 qualified applicants, not 5 applicants, 5 people that we listen to them, we see their background, and we see who they are, and they seem to be the best candidates. 5 people are like, oh, these 5 people could be great hires. Those are the ones we interview, right? And I'll go into more detail on the selection process, but just look at the principle. 5 qualified candidates should give you 1, maybe 2 hires. 1, maybe 2 hires, okay? Just think about those numbers. How many people have to apply to get you 5 candidates? And this is where it kind of depends. If you're hiring outside of the US, you might need to get 50 candidates, applicants, to get 5 because of the English level. That's really the main distinguishing factor outside the US, whether it's Philippines, Latin America, wherever, it's really their level of English. Everyone wants to work in a job like this, work from home, work in the US, this is awesome, but not everyone really qualifies. In the US, if you're hiring within the US, that number is going to be lower. It's not going to be 10 to 1, but it might be 3 to 1. It might be 5 to 1, depending on the area you're in. You want to generate applicants, as many applicants as you can, because you want to pick the qualified ones. If you're not doing at least 5 qualified interviews, in my opinion, the likelihood you're going to make a great selection is very, very low. It's very, very low. And I hear this all the time. I had 2 interviews and I picked the best one. Be intentional about that. Understand that this is one of your key roles in your team. Building, finding great people to put into your team is your job. This is the number one thing. This is the number one skill that will allow you to scale and build a big business, right? Bringing people into the team and having them be successful. And I'll get more into that because it's not just about the candidates, but that's step number 1, right? Get enough candidates. Great, Gus. I want to get a bunch of applicants. I only got 3 last time. How can I get more? Well, here are my top suggestions for realtors on where to find great ISA candidates. Number 1, your sphere, guys, your sphere. It is an unbelievably great call to make to your whole database. Hey there, Yankee, it's Gus again. Guess what? We're doing so well. Our team is growing. And I want to thank you for all your help to make that happen because Yankee might be a past client or they've referred you someone, whatever. Thank you so much. Who do you know that's looking for a new opportunity that might be interested in doing sales, jumping into real estate? I have a role. It's called inside sales agent. I need someone that's going to be a real phone animal that loves to make those calls. That loves to get paid, right? Wants to make some money. This is a great opportunity. This role is a salaried position on my team, and it includes bonuses. They might need to get licensed in your state, maybe not. All that jazz. Let them know. Call everyone you know. It's a great database call because at the end of that call, you go, and by the way, who do you know that might know that might want to buy something in real estate? It's a great conversation starter. My team are successful. My team is growing. I need your help, right? That's how all your database calls should go, by the way. But this is another way, another excuse to call up in your database. I
like that. I really, really like that. I never thought of calling our sphere and asking that question, but you never know who's looking for a job. You never know who is actually wanting to come in the real estate business, and they might not reach out to you, but if you reach out to them and ask them that question, I think that's fantastic. Wow.
100%. I love it. In Seattle, when I ran my team in Seattle, we did about 30, 40 transactions a year, 10 million in volume in Seattle. My best hires were friends of friends hires, right? I'm serving a bilingual community of like engineers at Microsoft, Boeing, Amazon, Google, Facebook that spoke Spanish, right? That came from other Latin America. So my staff was like that. Like literally everyone they encountered was someone like them, right? So that was it was very useful for me, for my team, right? To get people from my extended sphere, not my like direct friends or people I knew, but my people that you recommended. Right? And that is a great way to generate referrals, by the way. They don't only like no one like you, Now they don't like their friend on your team. It's like they really want you to succeed. It's a really virtuous cycle. So I recommend trying that in your sphere. Number two, and people might do this already. They might not never heard of this. Facebook group, folks. Facebook groups. So many things, in real estate, in lead generation, in candidate generation. The answer is always Facebook groups. You should try Facebook groups. They have to be part of your strategy in a lot of ways, but primarily you want to be able to go to Facebook groups and post a job opening. You need to make sure the group allows these things. You really would love to look for Facebook groups. You're looking for jobs, right? There's a lot of them out there right now. There's people that don't want to go back to retail right now. There's people that don't want to go, and be in person working right now. They're really open to working remotely. They're really open to looking at other opportunities. You should take advantage of that. There's a ton of talent out there that is, if you're open to having a virtual ISA, whether it's in the US or outside the US, your talent options are amazing right now. But even if you're hiring in-house, someone in-house, go to your local Facebook groups. Find people that are looking for new opportunities and post the information there, right? Facebook groups have been amazing for us. We've posted a lot of Facebook groups for people that want to work in call centers. We're a virtual call center. Like, hey, work from home, learn real estate, work for Gus. People love that, right? So that's pretty awesome. So Facebook groups. Number three, the typical job sites. These are the tried and true. People know what these are. ZipRecruiters work great for us. Indeed.com is all the rage right now. So whichever one you prefer, you've used before, you've had success with, the job sites will always provide candidates. My only gripe with some of these job sites is that they don't provide the volume that I like to see. That's really the only thing I have against them. If you're spending money, as if you're posting a job, this is costing you $10, $20, $30, $100, $200 to get this job posting out there. And for me, the ROI on that is okay, right? It can be better, it can be worse, depending on your market. But if you're going to spend money to generate candidates, the number one place you should be spending money on to generate great candidates are Facebook ads. Facebook ads, folks. If I'm gonna post a job on Indeed or ZipRecruiter and my budget is $100, if you put that budget into Facebook ads and you target your local area, or maybe you're targeting the whole US because it's remote, whatever it is, you are not going to get a better ROI than that right now, guys. Facebook ads, they're pretty awesome. They're amazing. Employment is a special ads category, so look into that. You need to figure that out. But if you can post this and be compliant, right, you're going to get a flood of candidates, and that's what you want. This is actually what you want. So I would always start from order of the least friction, the least cost, which is your sphere and your database. You should call them anyway. Great reason to call. I would try these Facebook groups. Very low cost, can be very high ROI. And if you're not getting enough candidates, I said 5 qualified candidates. If you're not getting enough, hit the ads, guys. Hit the ads. I would hit the ads right now. This is summer of 2021, right? I would hit the ads before the job portals. I really would. You're gonna get volume of candidates, and that's what you want, right? And for a sales position, the job portals are very, very good at getting people with certain credentials, with certain background, with certain experience. The job portals exceeded that. For the roles that I want are typically entry-level positions. That's what I'm usually recruiting for as an ISA. And a lot of buyer agents are the same. A lot of admins are the same. You're bringing people in as an entry level, and you're going to teach them how to do the job the way you want it done. This is a very common scenario in real estate. So my recommendation is go to the source. The job portals are not adding a ton of value in an entry level. In my opinion, they're not adding a ton of value in an entry level position. So go out and advertise. Hey, get a career in real estate. Make salary.
Right. And so let's talk a little bit about the Facebook groups that you had mentioned earlier. I think it is really important to kind of like, post that you're looking for someone that is, at an entry level position for an ISA, so to speak. or a, entry-level sales position, or are you thinking of joining a career, a successful team? I think keywords that you put out there is going to be very important. By the way, you guys, I do want to let you know that if you do need to get going, no problem. This webinar is definitely being recorded. We are on YouTube, always recorded. All our webinars are always recorded. So please subscribe and please do go, listen to it carefully when you have a moment. If you have any questions or concerns, because I know Gus speaks so fast and we're trying to all catch up because there's so much we want to share with you guys. So the YouTube channel link is posted right there below. So do subscribe and do listen to it if you do have to get going. Anyway, so go on, Gus. Tell us a little bit more about personality types. How do you really focus in on, finding that personality type to match with that?
Absolutely. And that's step number 2, which is the candidate filtering process. Okay. So this is really important. There's a lot of caveats to this because, for example, if you're in the US, you probably don't need a language filter, right? Because people are probably going to speak okay English if you're recruiting within the US. It's kind of not going to be a big deal. If you're recruiting outside the US, anytime someone wants to apply for your job, whether that's via email, via an online form, like a Google form or a job form, they have to include a recording of them saying a really simple script or talking about themselves. We always ask them, tell us why you're interested in this job, for example, right? We describe that, record it, and send us the audio. If they can't follow those instructions, they're not a good candidate anyway. So you want to put it out there, make them figure it out, send you that recording, or you can send them a link to any website. There's a lot of websites out there that let you record and send the file really, really easily. We just tell them, send it to us, send it to this email, or attach it to this form, whatever you want to use. But outside the US, language filter is huge, massive. It's a really, really important factor. Inside the US, not so much, right? So you want to bring them in, you want to filter out the ones that are just not qualified, and you want to have a conversation with them, right? Recordings help on the non-US scenario. For the US scenario, you might want to jump and do a quick qualification call with the person, right? That might be more, you're going to probably have less candidates in that sense. You're going to filter out, you're going to figure out who can sound good, who can sound bad. But you talk about them, there's 2 big things now. The personality profile and the interview. Personality profile and interview. So this is where it gets controversial. Dun, dun, dun. I love having discussions with folks about this because, it's one of those things where people have had certain experiences, they've had certain things going on in their team, and they will not hire someone unless they do the DISC or the Keller Williams, revisioning, or there's all these tools, and people, there was always behavioral assessments, and again, they're all useful, they all have a purpose. One of the things that I want to tell folks is to remember, the personality profile has a specific purpose. It tells you what someone's natural tendency is, right? It's going to tell you what they're typically like as a person. It's going to tell you with a high degree of certainty. Some tests have more certainty than others. That's how they work. But even the tests themselves, they tell you this should not be the determining factor of this decision. It should be, I think this says it should be 30% of your decision, right? A third of your decision should be, okay, what's their natural personality profile?
Right.
And there's 70% else that's outside of that, right? And I think for people, it is very easy, since the assessment is like a yes or no test, it seems like that, right? For example, for ISA, they have to be a dominant, a high D, a very super assertive role. That's ISA. And if they don't see that dominant D, oh, this person's discarded. My personal opinion is that is a mistake.
Yeah,
you
need a person that is a people person as well. You don't always need to go for a D because sometimes that might not work. Right. And sometimes that might not work with other people out there. Remember, this person is going to be talking to, the general public out there, right? So you need to have a personality that'll match every personality in that sense.
Yeah, 100%. And also the role you're recruiting for. If you are recruiting for a cold calling, hard-nosed, grinding role, then for me, high D would be more relevant in that situation. And I honestly would. If you're hiring for someone that's going to be nurturing, calling primarily your database and inbound leads, it's not that clear, folks, that high D is super necessary. High I can be a really great asset. But when someone's working with a CRM, folks, word from the wise here, high S and high C, in our experience, have been enormously successful in the lead manager inbound lead role, because it is more of a customer service role. The people they all have to follow instructions really carefully. They have to be pleasant to talk to. They have to be coachable and trainable. Super high flaming D, not always the most coachable and trainable person, right? So
not at all.
Yeah, the bottom line is there's a lot of details to this. So, and being 100% transparent, we stopped using behavioral assessments years ago because I saw that my team had more of a tendency to misuse them than to use them properly. So, and we replaced it with a more simplified interview process and a really intense onboarding process. And I'll get more into that, right? But that's my take on personality assessments. You can agree, you can disagree. I totally understand it. But at scale, I have in my team right now a pretty big mix of dominant D, dominant I, and dominant SC, right? There's equal parts, they're not, but you see folks that we could have discarded because they were high S, high C, be what we call a principal level ISA now, like a really experienced, great ISA. And sometimes they want to jump and become analysts long-term. They don't want to be on the phone after 2-3 years. Well, after 2-3 years, let's change your career. I don't have any issue with that, allowing the person to grow into another role, which is what the personality assessment is really telling you. Down the line, they might want to go to a different role, right? So I would tell folks, understand that limitation of some of these personality assessments and make it a part, one fraction of your decision. Or in my case, I decided to do away with them altogether because at the end of the day, there's more factors involved. And so the soft skills that I think are deterministic, that are prime, like number one for an ISA are grit, G-R-I-T, grit, it's like tenacity, like they don't give up, they're not scared of the phone, they're gonna grind, they're gonna be a hard worker, and their work ethic. Tenacity and work ethic. And folks, let me tell you, as someone that hires 5 to 10 ISAs a week, I hire 5 to 10 ISAs a week. You cannot interview for those skills. And I'm just going to throw that out there. Do your best. Do 5 interview loops. Do a month of interviews if you want. You're going to be as good as flipping a coin when it comes to measuring grit and measuring someone's work ethic, which is ultimately their values. You're measuring their values. How is this person a hard worker? Is this person a professional? Is this
Will they go above and beyond? Bottom line, will they go above and beyond to getting a phone appointment set? At the end of the day, their job is to set phone appointments. Are they going above and beyond to set that phone appointment, right? I think that is very, in a nutshell, in my high D personality that just boom came out. Bottom line is just basically they need to set appointments. They need to get
results. They need to get results, right? That's the ultimate key. So for me, someone that, they're a high S, high C, though we can't hire them. Whoa. The real test is the interview process. So just I don't want to skip over it. The interview process, we interview everyone. We interview all our candidates, but our interviews focus on a couple different things. One, we're outside the US, so we verify their English. That's one thing. One thing is listening and recording. Another thing is having a conversation with someone. We verify that. We verify their computer skills. That is non-negotiable. They have to be good with computers. So they're going to be using, I don't want to say complex software, but they got to be able to do the CRM.
To learn different CRMs, right?
They have to have that ability, exactly. You have to have a certain level of versatility. And number 3, they have to be a cultural fit. They have to be pleasant to work with. You got to want to work with this person. And you would be surprised how many people are not going to hide that they're difficult to work with. They don't hide it at all. It's part of who they are. And some people will interview great. I mean, I agree. But those are the 3 basic things we look for in an interview. A certain level of English, computer skills, and a cultural fit, personality fit that seems like a pleasant person, at least at the interview phase. This could be a 30-minute interview, right? You gotta understand the limitation. So once they pass that filter, they get hired. And this is step number 3, right? The number 1 was getting enough candidates. Step number 2 was filtering them to get the best ones. Got a little partner here. I got my intern saying hi. Hey, everybody.
Hello. He's here to help as well. So I
No,
think that,
exactly.
yeah, that is awesome. I mean, listen,
Just keeping it
look,
real, keep it remote.
I'm telling you, we have family, this is just the way we do Zooms these days. I have two questions, one from Andrea. Let's address her questions. She says, I'd like to know how you set up each ISA. How do you set up the parameters? I think we talked about this. And do you have exact written SOP for them? What companies do you recommend? Well, let me just start off by saying, Andrea, the company that I recommend is PowerISA right here, right now, only because, listen, if I didn't have the experience from PowerISA, I wouldn't give you that recommendation. But I do have that experience working with their ISA, and we have so much fun with him. He learned the Chime database inside out. Well, he's beginning to learn it inside out. He has actually been with us for about 2 weeks now, 3 weeks. Before that, we had somebody that was a different scenario. But, Power ISA did not give up on finding the right ISA for me. And so that's why I definitely do recommend Power ISA. The other questions, I'm sure Gus can answer. How do you set up the parameters, and how do you have an exact written SOP, basically a system for them?
Yeah, when actually that's what step number 3 is kind of about. We have the onboarding process. You have to have an onboarding process.
Yes.
For me, those next, at least the next 2 weeks, once they get hired conditionally, it's the final part of the interview, right? It's that onboarding process. You're going to teach them a really basic scenario they have to work on, right? So we do have an SOP for this. Everyone goes through the same process. No matter who we bring onto the team, we start them off learning a cold calling script. Cold calling is the hardest kind of calling to learn and to execute consistently.
Yes.
And if they can do that, they can probably do everything else, regardless of personality.
Exactly.
So it takes grit to do cold calling, and you got to put your head down and get your calls made every single day. So they go through a 2-week boot camp for us, and a good chunk of that is spent on the phone, because we have found that once you get them on the phone, then the mask comes off, right? Yes. There's nowhere to hide, folks. It's you and the phone, and you and the other person, and then the work ethic comes out, and then the grit comes out, right? So we try to put them in, I want to say, uncomfortable situations that is gonna show us the true color, right? And that is the biggest recommendation in that onboarding process. That's step number 3. Find a way to get them outside their comfort zone as quickly as possible and see how they react, because that's going to be their real work ethic. That's going to be their real personality. And it might match the assessment, and it might not match the assessment. Because the assessment does not measure grit, does not measure values, right? Does not measure work ethic. The only way that we found to measure that and to find it is doing the job. And if someone has another way to do it, I'd love to hear it. But I always caution agents and team leaders on spending too much time in the interview process. 1 interview, 2 interviews, 3 interviews, 4 interviews, 3 weeks of interviews, and okay, great. There's 2 things that happen that are really dangerous when you do that. You go overboard on the interview process. You are now bought into this person. Like you feel your personal success is tied to them. You went through all this expense, time, and work to select them. I've seen people have ISAs on their team 3, 4, 5, 6 months that they should have let go within the first 30 days.
Right, exactly. And that's something I want to dive into also, but at another webinar, because we are almost up at that level, that time. I do want to let everyone know again, Power ISA is offering a special deal exclusively with our LCA members only, and that is here in the chat box. And also, if you are interested in Power ISA, please go log on to their website, powerisa.com/LCA. And I think I had another question, yes, from Dan. Do you set up phone appointments or virtual consultations via Zoom? I can answer that, but I'd like for you to answer that one.
Okay, another question here.
No.
Oh no. So anyway. So is that question like when we call real estate leads, or is that for like, it depends on the team. But we did that because of COVID. 100% of our appointments were virtual for a few months last year.
Right.
As the areas were opening up, we do a mix. We have some teams that have gone virtual. They're not going back actually. So some of our clients are like, they only set virtual appointments to start, to build that relationship. Teams have gotten unbelievably, we should do a webinar on this, like signing buyer agreements on, right? They do the
Right.
introduction.
I would like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome approach. It's a great process to have. So a lot of our ISAs do set a lot of virtual appointments. But, again, the tried and true in-person appointment is best. Phone appointment is really, really good. And virtual is really, really good as well. The number one thing, and this is how you should measure their success, attended appointments. Those are always the best. Whichever one the person's going to attend, that is the best appointment you want to set.
Right. And most of my ISAs, most of the appointments that they set is phone appointments. And I think, we have a system around that where they set the phone appointment, and then the next step would be, what happens next with that phone appointment or with that particular lead going forward. So I think that in itself, like I said, is a system altogether, and a conversation for another webinar. So, another question that Dan, I think a follow-up question was that, what is the objective of the phone call, virtual appointment, signing buyer agreements?
Yeah, so the ISA role, we typically, it hands it off to a buyer's agent, a listing agent, or just a team leader, right? So it's a handoff. And it can be via phone appointment, which is a good one. Live transfer is also a great possibility.
We do a lot of live, yes,
like we do a lot. Already looking at homes.
Yes.
Someone that wants to talk to someone, live transfer that sucker, right? Like boom, send it over right away. It's a very hot lead. So the goal for the ISA should always be to hand it off to the closer, who can be buyer agent, lead, ISA, it could be the team owner, find who that person is. But typically the ISAs are not closing the leads, Usually, again, every team is organized a little bit differently. ISA is a training ground for buyer's agents in a lot of teams. So that, your mileage may vary. Typically the ISAs, they want to talk to the person, they have scripting and objection handling to close for the appointment. That's what they want.
Exactly. And I think, like you said, most of the times the objection of that phone call, that objective, the main juice out of this is to convert it. Last night, just to give you an example, our ISA did a live transfer. We now have a set phone appointment. We have a set of phone, a listing appointment with that lead, and they're looking to buy. So there, boom, you just have to.
That'll be first.
And another thing is the way we set up our live transfers is we tell our ISA between 4 and 7 p.m. I will be here for live transfers. Or between 8 and 11, we're here for live transfers. So they know exactly what to expect. I think that is, setting the expectation, setting the bar to a level where, setting so many X amount of appointments. I think that is so important to also kind of navigate through and let your ISA know what is. And the question that I ask on our start of the week meetings with our ISA team is that, what is the goal that we want this week? How many phone appointments are you going to set? And this week is going to be 10 phone appointments, which is easy peasy for my ISA to do. Not a problem at all. My another ISA said, well, I'll be setting for about 2 phone appointments a day. And I said, okay, not a problem. Slowly but surely that is actually happening. So set many goals for them as well. And, you will see a transformation within a few months out of it. Right, Gus?
Yeah, absolutely.
It has been amazing. Always a pleasure talking to you, Gus. I don't know.
One last comment, a couple of things I do want to tell folks. Definitely these 2 steps are useful. They're doable. If you have questions about them, send me a message, drop a comment in LCA. If you're in the Facebook group, would love to jump in there. On LCA Prime, if you're a premium member,
yes!
You can jump on that. I'm pretty active on that group as well. We have, if you kind of want to skip over this process, guys, this is too hard, this is too much, I already have a lot on my plate. Or you have a large team like Yankee and you want to complement that with an ISA. Right now, this is today. This is actually for July 28th. We have 3 part-time ISAs available to start immediately, and that's rare for us. Like Yankee, you had to wait like a month, and this is typical. Well, because of the way the scheduling worked out, we have 3 part-time ISAs, 20 hours a week, available to start tomorrow if you wanted them to start. So FYI, if you want to have a part-time ISA on their team right away. And number 2, if you want to do this process, but you want some guidance, you want hand-holding, you want the Facebook ads, you want the text, you want to set up the funnel, you want to set up the application form, you want to help with the interviews, listening, selecting, the onboarding process, the training tools, and the management, we have a training called Build Your ISA. It's a course. As a member of LCA, you get $500 off that course. That is another way to really scale up and learn how to do this process within your team. So we have both options available for folks who want a little bit more help.
And the best place to go, and then Dan has a couple of questions as well. The best place to go is powerisa.com/LCA to get more details about this. Dan, I think that place would be a perfect place to go to, answer these questions. I think he asked how much do they charge per hour. I think that depends and it varies what you get part-time, full-time, and where are you located. Again, you can definitely have that conversation with Gus. PowerISA.com/LCA. I'm sure Gus will definitely respond to that. Any other questions, you guys, please just go on to PowerISA.com/LCA. That's the best place to get this information from. And I am experienced in this with PowerISA, and I come to give them a total review to saying it's really amazing to see how an ISA transforms your business. But that we save for another topic on another webinar. For now, I will see everyone later. I will talk to everyone later. And Gus, thank you so much for always being here for us at LCA. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.